So once again, welcome everybody. It's Monday, it's the Deer Park, it's the Buddha Center. So let's get started with the week. Let's start out like we normally do, short period of bell meditation. Wherever you are behind your avatar, please get into a nice meditation posture. And as I ring the Ching bell, just focus on the sound of the bell. Really get that deep listening going today. You'll probably get distracted, happens to all of us. When it does, just gently remind yourself and go back to focusing on the sound of the bell. So I'll give you a moment to get a nice meditation posture, and we'll begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dhamma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dhamma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. emotions are certainly running high for all of us, or they can if we let them. And it's really easy to allow emotions that arise in you to rule how you interact with the causal universe. Whatever emotion arises, you just let it have full reign, and you just let it determine whatever action you're going to take, regardless of the known or even the unknown consequences. This is the easy way. Oh, I'm angry, I'll just be angry. Oh, I'm joyful, I'll just be joyful. Achieving a sustainable state of emotional equanimity will enable you to have a greater possibility of actions that will result in wholesome consequences. Because it won't be emotions that are dictating reaction, it will be cultivated wisdom that is guiding to responses. And that's what we want to shoot for in our Buddhist practice. Sure, emotions are going to arise, we're going to recognize them, we're going to realize them, we're going to accept that they're there, and then we're going to let them go. Now, there are two ways that emotions manifest themselves. Sometimes they arise only to just overwhelm us, like grief. Okay, grief is a great example of a type of emotion that can just overwhelm us. Or we can strive to analyze them by defining their characteristics and studying how they impact our life and the lives of others. The first instance is one in which emotions are in control, right? They overwhelm us. And it can be anything, right? Grief, joy, sadness, all that. In the second instance, we can engage in experiential verification. And this is the opportunity to determine the value of that emotion and choose to act with its influence or discard it for what will most likely be a better choice. Hello, Miles. Good to see you. Thing is, we can't do both at once. We can't both let that emotion overwhelm us and analyze it at the same time. Because to analyze requires us to detach from that emotion so that reflection and contemplation can have the space that it needs to actually occur. To achieve non-attachment to emotional phenomena is not easy. To reach non-attachment, we've got to first realize, and the hard part, we have to admit to ourselves that the emotions are not us. They do not have to be how we are. Often you hear people saying, you probably said it, and I do believe back in my youth I said it too. Basically, I don't have any control over what my emotions cause me to do. That is a convenient excuse for lazy and for the ignorant, not for someone walking the noble path. Because we know better. You might be familiar with an English philosopher, Francis Bacon. He was around from 1561, 1626. He was a scientist, he was a philosopher, he was an essayist. Well, he unknowingly described a very Buddhist concept of understanding emotion. In this, he was referring to the paths that emotions have taken in the writings of history and literature. But his words speak very clearly to those of us on the noble path. Bacon offers that, quote, the best doctors of this knowledge, and that's how he's describing emotions, where we may find painted forth with great life how affections are kindled and incited, and how pacified and refrained, and how again contained from act and further degree, how they disclose themselves, how they work, how they vary, how they gather and fortify, how they are enwrapped one within the other, and how they do fight and encounter one with another, unquote. And now, unknown to Mr. Bacon here, he's kind of describing the process that a Buddhist practitioner goes through on the path of changing the view they have of their own emotions. Hello, Holly. There is recognition of what emotions are, what buttons cause their arising, how we can gain control over them, how one emotion revolves around another and even initiates another, and how they cause suffering, discontent, and anguish within us. I think one of the really interesting things that Francis Bacon realized here is this idea that how one emotion revolves around another and can actually initiate or cause the arising of another emotion. So like fear can of course bring anger. Hate can bring anxiety. Anxiety of course goes right along with fear. But then fear can go along with joy. Right? I am so happy, I'm afraid it's going to stop. So Francis Bacon is describing, showing the path that they can take, and showing the path that we can find away from those destructive emotions. Emotional experience involves widespread commotion in the body-mind. It is a holistic body-mind experience, no matter the emotion that arises. Holistic meaning when anger arises, it doesn't just affect your head, right? It affects your body too. Same thing with all the other emotions. There's always a full body-mind effect. Because when the mind is seized by anger, the eyes, they take on that fiery aspect. The body tenses all up. But when the mind is seized by embarrassment, well, the cheeks redden, shame arises in the mind. When the mind is seized by fear, the face pales while the body prepares to take flight or fight. And when the mind is seized by lust, well, hey, we all know how the body-mind reacts to lust. There are both psychological and physiological effects from emotions. Some degree of disturbance that will affect the entire body-mind. Those effects are not equal in all emotions. William James, another guy here, American philosopher, psychologist. He's long associated with the school of pragmatic philosophy. He distinguished the coarser emotions that cause the arising of easily recognized reverberations in the body-mind to the subtler emotions in which the effects are less apparent. The truth of this realization is what makes the development of mindfulness of self and awareness of consequence so important in a Buddhist practice. James offered a different view of how emotions affect us that might seem to be the opposite of a common sense view. So here's a scenario. There's a hiker in the mountains, and that hiker encounters a bear. And seeing it, they are frightened and they run away. Experience brings on mental phenomena that causes flight. Bear, dangerous, feet, run. Sounds logical. But James reversed that order of effect. The hiker encounters the bear, and seeing it, they run away, and as they run away, they become afraid. What James is pointing out here is that pragmatically, we already know to run away from a bear. We automatically know danger. The emotion of fear is not the driver of action in the way James lays this out for us. Instead, it is the knowledge of what a bear might do that causes the hiker to run. And with the action, the fear arises. So for James, then, the emotion is a byproduct of the action rather than the instigator of that action. This was his experience, and it may be the experience of others as well. So sometimes it's fear, run away from the bear. Sometimes it's run away from the bear because I know it's dangerous, and that makes me scared because, hey, the bear might catch up with me. We can find ourselves in the midst of one activity causes us to react one way and one causes us to react the other. But this also points to the idea that emotions are not part of us. They join us, if you will, on our journey on the path. So if James is right and we're running away because we know the bear is dangerous and that causes the fear, then we can look at our own emotions in a different way. When it comes to engaging emotions, it doesn't really matter, though, if the emotion leads to action or action leads to emotion. What matters, at least from a Buddhist perspective, is recognizing the arising of emotion and then not allowing it to have any impact on whatever action is chosen to take in the face of that particular situation. So to do this, we've got to realize that emotions are not how we have to be. They are only transitory body-mind phenomena, and they can be controlled and eventually ignored altogether. Here it comes. Is it easy? No. Is it valuable? Yeah. But why is a practice of emotional equanimity important? Because, and here I'm going to, another quote, this one's Rudyard Kipling, from his poem, If. Quote, "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs." Unquote. With this, our response to emotional situations will be met with calm and balance, with equanimity. If we can keep our head when all around us, everybody else is losing theirs. Or we might even say, if you can keep your head when all about your head you're starting to lose. The emotions, that emotions are a cause of human suffering is really clear, right? Experiential verification, we can look at our own lives and see it happen. And whether it is in the adverse effects on the body-mind or that acting on emotion commonly leads to bad decisions and unwholesome consequences, the Dharma is there for all of us to experience. Emotions distract us from the reality of a given situation, and they are hindrances to the development of a body-mind grounded in serenity. William James' view of action leading to emotion, rather than the other way around, does have value in a practice of emotional equanimity. Speaking from personal experience, there is a sequence of situation, emotion, action, and reinforced emotion. Now, at the office, for example, you're expected to have a client presentation ready for tomorrow. It causes the arising of anxiety about the project and anger that you alone are expected to take care of it. The anxiety hinders your confidence in your ability to develop the presentation, and the anger distracts you from focusing fully on what needs to be done. Now, on the following morning, you decide, take action. I'm going to call in sick and avoid the situation. That action causes reinforced anxiety because what will be the consequence of the choice and possible anger at yourself for just giving up? The trick to developing emotional equanimity is to not allow the emotion, whatever it is, to cloud a view of a situation that needs to be based in reality. Understanding the boss made the choice for a good reason will allow anxiety to fall away and be replaced by a calm realization that you can do the job well. An appropriate view that the other people in your office are tasked with projects and that you are best suited for this project at this moment can reveal to you a balance of consequence across the office. And this same ideal can be applied to any situation in which emotions are likely to arise. And let's face it, that's kind of all the time. Emotions are always out there ready to jump in and try to play their role. Now, for many years prior to Buddhism, I worked in all kinds of different offices and I experienced all kinds of different examples of emotional upheaval that could happen when one person's emotions swept through an office and just altered the moods and actions of everyone that wasn't able to avoid or attain some emotional equanimity or avoid the emotion itself. And from those experiences, I had to write something about it. And here it is. I call this mood tsunami. You know, tsunami, the big wave. So here it is. A mood tsunami thundered through the office. It birthed negativity and unleashed it on the uninvolved. An unsuspecting coworker pondering their own problematic personal events got swept up in the moods of others. Engulfed by it, their faint agitation transformed into crippling anxiety. The mood tsunami rolled on and forced its way through a closed door, inundating another unprepared victim. A day that began sunny turned cloudy. The tsunami's strength trebled, and it widened its influence. Washing into the open sales floor, it quickly spread, losing none of its power. The insidious wave transformed minor disagreements between friendly coworkers to raised voices and name baiting. Sensing the abrupt change in the emotional climate, one person stretched their tentacles of unhappiness and snared the inexperienced. Their unhappiness would become the unhappiness of others. Drowning in the rising negativity, the inexperienced hurriedly cast hooks into perceived wrongs. A few employees reached islands of peace, where they watched that swirling turmoil in some sort of mental safety. Anchored by compassion and wisdom, they resisted being swept up by this mood tsunami. So this is what can happen with emotions. Not only do emotions affect us, but emotions can jump out there right from us to somebody else and affect someone else. That's why being an example is so important as a Buddhist. We'd much rather be an example of calm and equanimity than screaming and yelling and being angry. Emotions are not hardwired into us. We develop the buttons for those emotions. Once those buttons are recognized, then it becomes easier to disable those buttons in our body-mind. Emotions are one of the causes of human self-imposed suffering. Sadness held for too long. Joy that is missed once it falls away. Romantic love that ends. And the elation that comes with a new car. Well, until it develops wear and tear, that is. These are examples of that type of discontent and anguish. And to alleviate emotional impact takes developing an emotional equanimity, a calm and balanced view of every moment-to-moment experience. And I gotta say it again. Is this easy? No. But it's very valuable. Whatever the emotion, it's not going to last. It's going to pass. Unless we grasp onto it. Aha. So the emotion wants to come, but it also wants to go. But sometimes we want to grab a hold of it and hold on. We want to become attached to it for whatever reason we have used to justify its existence. That last part, whatever reason we use to justify its existence, this is where rigorous self-honesty comes into play. If you are sad a lot, then you got to find out why. If you are happy a lot, you might want to find out why. If you're angry, or if you're full of hate or greed, you want to find out why. But equally, if you're full of compassion and loving kindness, my goodness, find out why. Finding out why can lead us in two different directions. Weed the emotion out, or the activity out, or plant it, cultivate it, and make it stronger. So we can justify the existence, or can we? That's what takes the rigorous self-honesty.